This is true insanity. Los Angeles will provide cash assistance to immigrants affected by ICE raids. So let me get this straight. ICE is coming in and deporting criminal, illegal aliens, getting rid of them. And the mayor of Los Angeles is stating, we're going to help their families out that were impacted because their criminal, illegal relative got tossed. That's what we're doing? Yes, it is. Let's get into it. Here we go. This is just some of these stories I read. I'm like, really? I mean, if I had to make up these stories, I don't think I would, because I'd go, in my head, I'd be like, nobody's going to believe that. Why would anybody believe that? That is the stupidest thing ever. Well, here we've got, communist mayor doing her communist mayor thing. Let's watch the video.
Action signing an executive order in response to federal immigration raids. One part of her plan, direct cash assistance for families impacted. Tonight, one of the people who's leading that effort joins us live. 𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗣 is the president and CEO of the Mayor's Fund for Los Angeles.
There are things that are going really well, and the cards are one of them. And so, look, this is for undocumented people. It's for people in need. And I think what's important, they'll be distributed through nonprofit organizations, through the city's family source centers, through a variety of ways that it actually gets to people directly, and they can use it directly. What's important, I think, is that it doesn't only help the people who are getting the cards. It helps all of us. Because what affects one of us and helps them from becoming homeless?
What about the people that had criminal activity against them from the criminal illegal aliens that ICE is deporting? How does this impact them positively? This is all about just handing out money left and right to the criminal illegals, because those numbers, when you start deporting mass numbers, well, they're in California, and politics being what they are, seats are going to go to Texas. Seats are going to go away from California, House of Representatives. And as such, that's what they're doing. They're trying to keep as many butts in chairs as possible. Oh, we don't want to deport them. So you want to put out this massive, massive push to why we need to help our favorite criminal illegals within our community that for one reason or another have deportation orders or have some kind of criminal history, and they're being asked nicely to get the F out, which should have, happened a long time ago in many of these cases. It's happening now. And so now Mayor Bass, in her geniusness, is going to hand out some money to their families. All right. Who have been harboring criminal illegal aliens. Make this make sense. I can't. But this guy here is completely full of shit. Completely full of shit. He's with the mayor. It's expected. Let's hear what this commie has to say.
Homeless helps all of us.
So this is not taxpayer money. This is not direct government assistance. This is private money that's been donated for the idea of helping people. That's an important thing to point out. But there's still a lot of people who feel like helping undocumented people, even with private money, is incentivizing people to break the law and be here. They shouldn't be rewarded for being undocumented.
Huh. Weird. So that's a point I hadn't considered.
What do you say to those people?
These are our neighbors. The fact is that they're people in LA. They're
not anymore. They've been deported.
Doing the work. They're supporting families. They're working in restaurants and hospitals and health clinics. They're people that are doing a lot.
That doesn't mean they should be, though. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean they should be. I'm not saying deport everybody. I'm just saying, hey, you've got this thing called a closed border, and there's no country in the world that's just like, let them in, should be fine. It doesn't really work that way. And yet you've got leadership throughout the United States, just trying to keep butts in chairs.
Out of the work in Los Angeles, the fact is that, look, it's not that we're encouraging people to come here illegally. It's saying that, look, for productive people in Los Angeles who are contributing to Los Angeles life, and most are, that it's important to at least be sure that they're living at a reasonable standard.
So how do you get?
All right. And so a couple $100, a card. What's that going to do again? I mean, it's Los Angeles. It's one of the most expensive states in the United States, right? California. You're going to throw out a couple. No, this is virtue signaling at its greatest. This is virtue signaling and nothing more. Here's a couple $100 card. Good luck with that. Remember when they were giving out big debit cards in New York City? Oh, yeah. Come to the U.S., get a big old fat preloaded debit card. Well, now we're just handing out taxpayers' money. Well, I mean, they're saying it's taxpayers' money, but it's private money that the city is handing out. Shenanigans. I call shenanigans. I call nonsense on this. Nonsense on the whole plan. Mayor Karen Bass announced a plan Friday to provide direct cash assistance to people who have been affected by the Trump administration's sweeping immigration raids. Make this make sense. Make this. If you support that kind of hogwash, then go for it. I see it very black and white. And I know there are good folks who aren't here legally, who are working hard, but there are rules, right? You can't just live here and then not expected to be deported if you haven't gone through the legal route. And that's immigration. Needs to be legal. There's a system. There's a process. We live in a society. The aid will be distributed using cash cards with a couple $100 on them, which should be available in about a week, Bass said in a news conference. How are they going to hand those out? Who qualifies? How do they get them? How many total? Again, we just never know the details on this because it's like, we're just, you're handing it out to our comrades. You have people who don't want to leave their homes, who are not going to work because they are not here legally, and they may have a criminal record. They may have done some criminal activity. That's the way they don't want to leave their homes. They don't want to go to work, and they're in need of cash. So a couple $100 is going to do it. You are literally enabling these people to try and figure out a way to stay, and they know it. Bass knows it. Her Looney Tune henchman, he knows it. You see him stuttering, trying to come up with logic and this idea of why these cards are good. I mean, he was just so excited. Thank you for covering this story because it's such a positive one. Well, not for the rest of us that recognize that Obama deported 3 million in his time in office, and Trump would need to crank it up from 3,000 a day up to 7,000 a day in order to reach Obama levels of deportation. Make that make sense. And everybody thought Obama's just the greatest thing since sliced pie, right? Sliced bread, sliced pie. Pie is better than bread. Everybody knows that. Although a good French bread. Sourdough, maybe? I don't know. Bass spoke about a family she met who needed 2 incomes to afford their rent. That's pretty normal. That's called America. After one of the breadwinners was detained in an immigration raid, she said the family is concerned they may face eviction. All right. So say you got a husband and wife, and they've got 3 children, and the husband murders somebody in a bar brawl, just beats him to death. And then the family may be concerned they may face eviction because the husband was the breadwinner, right? Go back to bread again. So how is that much different? Somebody's here illegally, somebody committed a crime, they're being tossed, whatever the reason may be, they had deportation orders. It's been known for a long time that they might get tossed. How is that much different? Do we do a fund for the killer and say, we need to help your family? Nah, it's just the way it goes. It's part of the inherent risk when you've got deportation orders. You know that that's the case. It was not immediately clear what the qualifications will be needed to receive the cards. Not a shocker. There are none. Just they're going to hand them out willy-nilly and talk about it. And just virtue signal and basically, look at us, greatest city ever. Meanwhile, less than 100 permits have been issued for all the homes, the 16,000 structures that were burned down from the Palisades fire. 100 out of 16,000 structures. 100. and we're handing out money. California, Los Angeles is handing out money that could go to, I don't know, rebuilding those communities instead of this nonsense. The cards will be distributed by immigrant rights groups, such as the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles. Okay. All right. Said it will coordinate between philanthropists and organizations distributing the cards, according to the mayor's office. What a grand show that is. You know what I mean? I mean, just grandstanding. Just, look at me, greatest thing ever. And yet it's mind-blowing, isn't it? I mean, what else can you say? They're doing what? Why? Oh, because there's a need. Really? Is there? Or is this just how things go when you don't follow the rule of the law? Is that just how things go? Yeah, it is. Mayor compared the program to Angelino cards created by Mayor 𝗥𝗘𝗠𝗦𝗢𝗡 in 2020. He was not popular, was he? To give financial assistance to people struggling during the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, you had him on absolute lockdown. You had that one guy who was out on a paddleboard getting chased down by the cops. Hey, you're by yourself. You're paddling outdoors. And we need to arrest you because you can't be here because of lockdowns like that. That's why people needed the help, because the economy closed, society closed, couldn't work. Yeah. But hey, let's give out a couple $100 debit card, preloaded debit card. It'll all be good. The announcement came during a Bass news conference about an executive order she signed Friday directing all city departments to bolster protocols and training on how to comply with the city's sanctuary policy. That sanctuary policy is looked at by the rest of the country, and even people in Los Angeles who have lived there their whole lives and are not getting any money, will never see a dime for the sanctuary policy, and are looking at this going, where's my money? Where's my $200? Where's my handout? My life has been impacted by gas prices, by housing prices, by food costs. Living in California, living in Los Angeles, crime, homelessness, drugs. Where's my money? Where's my money? Well, you don't get any. Didn't have a family member being deported, which states that city employees and city property may not be used to investigate, cite, arrest, hold, transfer, or detain any person for the purposes of immigration enforcement. These people are just bending over backwards to keep these criminal illegals in the country. That's what they're doing, except for serious crimes. All right, so you murder somebody, you rape somebody, what else counts? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so you're only going to admit that this is a problem when it's a serious crime because you have to. Departments will have to come up with their plans within 2 weeks. Trump administration sued the city over the sanctuary policy last month, arguing that it discriminates against organizations like ICE. 100% it does. And when you are a city and your leadership, your mayor, your city council tells the police force to basically not enforce the law when they've taken an oath to uphold the law, make that make sense. I don't think there's any cops out there that got into it to not enforce the law. My whole game plan here is to not lock anybody up, never arrest anybody, just going to skip on by, and we're going to play that game. No, that's not how this goes, right? And yet, police precincts in these big blue cities, that's what's happening. Look at Portland. Perfect example. They just let Antifa run train until somebody launches a lawsuit saying, hey, noise ordinances are being wildly violated by Antifa on their nightly raids on the ICE building. And somebody that lives in the neighborhood sues the woman with the cane, the black woman with the cane, who basically said, cut all this crap out. I can't sleep. I can't hear myself think. It's terrible. She sues the city. And what's the city do? They immediately go and clean out Antifa. So, the cities can control this stuff. They just don't. And they do what they want to do. And that's why, you've got this stuff happening. People of Los Angeles, you voted these elected officials in. This is what you get. A bunch of knuckleheads doing whacked out knucklehead things. The executive order also creates a working group that will examine and possibly update the Los Angeles Police Department's policy on responding to immigration enforcement. Why don't you spend your time actually helping people? How about that? Maybe cutting down some of that BS red tape on the building permits so you can have more than 100 out of 16,000 structures permitted. We're not even talking construction starting yet. We're just talking permitted. It's going to take forever. Since 1979, the Los Angeles Police Department has taken a strong stance against enforcing federal immigration law. And how has that worked out for Angelenos? How's that worked out? Yeah. Prohibiting its officers from initiating contact with anyone for the sole purpose of learning their immigration status. Well, they're not ICE, but, you can't be multiple steps removed when you've got a known person with a deportation order and ICE is coming and you just let them out onto the streets. That doesn't help folks in Los Angeles. Dumping a criminal illegal who's committed a crime and needs to be deported and basically letting them just go out on the streets because ICE is coming, that is some real nonsense. You got some real nonsense there. And that's what big blue liberal cities, counties, states, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. The executive order also included a directive to file Freedom of Information Act requests for ICE to turn over records within the dates and locations of every raid in the city. Yeah, that's nonsense. Not going to happen. Cash cards are one of a slew of announcements, including the executive order this week by the mayor in response to the federal immigration crackdown in LA that has entered its second month. And you know what I say? Good. It's about time. That whole nonsense, that whole just cluster you-know-what with Biden letting in 10, 15, 20 million? Who knows? Who knows how many criminal illegals were let into the country? We don't really know, right? Gotaways, you got all kinds of numbers to consider. We don't really know. Earlier this week, Bass and the city attorney announced the city's intention to join a lawsuit calling for an end to the Trump administration's unlawful raids in the city. What are unlawful about these raids? What's unlawful about tossing those with deportation orders or who've committed a crime from our country that don't belong here? What is illegal about that? Exactly which part? So this story kind of goes, one more layer further than the whole, let's go Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, who's just so, excited to be told what to do from Democratic leadership, from the party. Hey, you got to be sanctuary. I do? I do. Because let's go Brandon Johnson is dumber than a rock. I mean, that guy is just, he can't really, he's a DEI hire through and through. So is Karen Bass, absolute DEI hire, right? People love this stuff. They love this stuff. Love it, love it, love it. And then, you have a bunch of stuff go sideways and people are, oh, well, that person should have been deported, but they weren't. Problematic, difficult. Now, you got to get the folks out that should be out and let that process happen. Obama did. Why don't we let Trump do that? Well, because they don't like Trump and they don't like what this is doing to the political numbers, right? The number of constituents, the number of population, moving population around and all that kind of thing. This is going in the wrong direction. I think what was interesting, one of my comments that I heard from Gavin Newsom is really ramping his profile up. He was on a pretty prominent podcast, which I'll be talking about. And Joe Rogan texted in the podcast host a question. Funny, but I'm not going to get into that. But Gavin Newsom basically stated, and he's 100% correct in his analysis of the Democrat Party is continually on their heels. They're on their heels from the standpoint of they are not on the balls of their feet. Balls of your feet, you're moving forward. You've got your weight forward. You're able to engage forward. You're on your heels, you're backed up, you're falling backwards, and you can't really be doing anything aggressive on the offense. You're literally just on defense. this money here to provide cash assistance to the immigrants affected by raids, that's an on the heels of your feet type movement, because they're playing defense. They are literally in a defensive position because Trump is just boom, 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 doing his thing. Raid after raid after raid. And that's what's supposed to be happening, right? You had 4 years of letting people in unbridled into the country, and now you're deporting a handful? I mean, okay, all right. So we'll just, we'll make it rain and give them a couple $100 debit cards by private parties. I mean, it is virtue signaling at its greatest for something that I think even Democrats probably don't 100%. Not all of them are like, yeah, this is the greatest thing ever. They're not doing that. And so this whole notion of Democrats being on their heels, this is one more example of they're continually on their heels, trying to just play catch up and get into a position where they can fight, but they can't because Trump just keeps coming at them with one thing after another. I think it's great. I really do. So this kind of thing here, it's like, all right, that figures. This is a stupid move politically. If I was a Democrat, yeah, this makes sense, but it makes sense because it doesn't make sense. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think it does, right? You're like, okay, that's happening because it shouldn't be happening because the last 4 years of lack of enforcement of our borders happened. And now here we are. And so families of those recently deported, here's your $200, whatever it might be, $100, whatever. And honestly, you give somebody $150 in California, that just fills up the tank on their F-150, right? That's what it does. So this is virtue signaling at its greatest. What does it actually mean? It just means we're on two different playing fields here, and we are worlds apart because this is the craziest thing ever. It makes no sense, but whatever. Most of my podcasts don't. They don't. They're just storylines that you're like, what? What happened? You doing what? It's like I got one more, and I'm not sure I will cover it, but the anti-public masturbation $500,000 building that was going to be built in Denny Blaine Park in Seattle. Well, a judge has said, hey, city of Seattle, you got 2 weeks to get all the perverts out of that park. You got 2 weeks to lock that bad boy down because this is unacceptable behavior in a city park, in a community that wants to have children play at that park. But they can't because there's guys jacking off for 6 hours straight on the hood of the red truck in the park watching somebody else do the same thing. And their answer, city council, one of their optional answers was, let's build them an anti-masturbation building. And then they can all just go in there and do whatever. And it'll all be great. Those are stories that shouldn't be happening, but because you've got such public policy that makes absolutely zero sense out of big Democrat cities, that's what you get. Oh, I handed out debit cards preloaded to the families of those recently deported. No. Hard no-go. Wild stuff, right? Okay. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe. The notification bell, hit the like button. You enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.